Senator from New Hampshire.
Thank you. I'm pleased to follow my neighbor from Vermont, Senator Patrick Leahy. We also had a very inspiring march in the capital of New Hampshire on Saturday that Senator Hassan and I both attended. But I'm here to talk not about that so much as about the 44th anniversary of the Roe versus Wade decision, because that anniversary happened this past Sunday. That ruling affirmed the constitutional right of women to control our own reproductive choices. It made abortion services safer and more accessible for women across this country. And on Saturday, as Senator Leahy said so eloquently, we saw millions of women and men come together in Washington, in Concord, New Hampshire, and other cities across New Hampshire and across the United States and all across the globe. There were events in all 50 states and in 32 countries. We came together to defend this constitutional right, as well as other critical gains for women in recent years. And our message, expressed peacefully and powerfully, was that we will not allow these gains to be taken away. We will not be dragged backward. Despite the progress since the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, women's reproductive health care remains under constant assault. States have passed restrictions intended to shut down clinics and limit access. And sadly, Republican leadership here in Congress has repeatedly attempted to defund Planned Parenthood, which is one of this nation's leading providers of high-quality, affordable health care for women. And over 95% of the work that is done by Planned Parenthood is done to provide preventive services and health care to women, things like mammograms and cervical cancer screenings and other important preventive care. Unfortunately, the Trump administration and Republican leaders here in Congress have exhibited a dangerous obsession with rolling back women's reproductive rights. President Trump has promised to nominate Supreme Court justices who will overturn Roe v. Wade. And, you know, it's interesting. He's talked about court decisions around LGBT rights as being settled law. And yet we've got the Roe v. Wade decision, 44 years old, and for some reason he doesn't include that as settled law. Just yesterday, in one of his first official acts, the president signed an executive order reinstating the global gag rule, also known as the Mexico City policy that began with Ronald Reagan's executive order. That executive order prohibits U.S. financial aid to many international organizations that offer contraception and comprehensive planning services, family planning services to women. But what we've seen with this executive order that President Trump signed is a broad expansion of that Mexico City policy. The new Trump administration has joined with Republican leaders in Congress in pledging a much broader assault on women's rights and the gains that women have made in recent years. In addition to terminating funding for Planned Parenthood, which more than 12,000 Granite Staters depend on for quality, affordable health care, they've promised to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which would have profoundly negative consequences for women's health. Repeal would end Obamacare's ban on discrimination against women in health insurance. It would allow, depending upon how their replacement law is crafted, it would allow health insurance insurers once again to classify pregnancy as a pre-existing condition and to deny many women coverage. It would allow insurers to charge women more simply because we are women. It would reverse women's access to contraception without cost sharing, and it would end access to preventive health services such as mammograms and cervical cancer screenings without cost sharing, all very significant benefits of the Affordable Care Act. And we've also seen last week reports that if the Justice Department, the Trump administration plans to eliminate the Office on Violence Against Women, including all 25 grant programs that have been working to prevent domestic violence, sexual assault, and other forms of violence against women for more than 2 decades. This at a time when 1 in 5 women in this country still report being the victim of a completed or attempted rape. Well, taken together, these actions amount to more than a dangerous obsession with rolling back women's reproductive rights. They amount to an assault on the safety and well-being of women and girls in the United States and across the globe. And this is exactly what millions of women and men were protesting on Saturday. And sadly, people are not just concerned, they're frightened. And unfortunately, with very good reason. As those of us who gathered and marched on Saturday made very clear, we are not going to stand still for this assault on our rights and gains. We are not going to be taken backward. This week, I'm introducing bipartisan legislation to permanently repeal the global gag rule with Senator Collins. This rule bans federal funds for non-governmental organizations that provide abortion services or information about abortion as part of comprehensive family planning services. And as I said earlier, the Trump administration's reinstatement of the global gag rule is even more extreme and harmful than it has been in previous Republican administrations. Previously, under President Reagan and the Bush administrations, this policy applied only to family planning funding. But under President Trump's order, it applies to every program that falls under global health assistance. This means that it puts at risk 15 times more funding and millions more women and families. This targets some of the most effective health organizations at work in the developing world, organizations that are doing great work to provide HIV services, maternal health care, to counsel women on the risks of the Zika infection. And it ignores decades of research, because we know that when family planning services and contraceptives are easily accessible, there are fewer unplanned pregnancies, fewer maternal deaths and child deaths, and fewer abortions. So if you want to prevent abortion, something that I think we all agree on, then why not give women and their families access to family planning services? I don't think we can allow extreme ideology to triumph over the urgent practical needs of women and families across the world. The facts make clear that when family planning services are accessible and contraceptives are affordable, rates of unplanned pregnancies and abortions go down. Here in the United States, the abortion rate has dropped to the lowest level since 1943, a success that is directly attributed to reduced cost sharing for contraception under the Affordable Care Act. And what do? We have the leadership in Congress trying to reverse that assistance to women and families. In recent days, we've been presented with a fateful choice. We can stand aside and allow the Trump administration to lead an across-the-board assault on women's rights, on women's access to health care, on programs that protect women from sexual assault and other forms of violence. Or we can come together on a bipartisan basis to protect the important gains that women have made in recent years and decades. And, back in the early 80s, I chaired a committee in New Hampshire that was working on women's employment in the state. And one of the conclusions that we came to was when women are supported, their families are supported. So this is not just about women in this country. This is about families. It's about women and their children and their husbands and their brothers and their fathers and their mothers. This is about what's in the best interest of the American people. Millions of Americans joined together on Saturday, peacefully and passionately, to urge Congress to make the right choice, to to protect women's constitutional rights, to protect our access to health care. I urge my Senate colleagues on both sides of the aisle to listen to those voices. And I urge my colleagues to join with me in ending the global gag rule once and for all. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.